Hello, everyone. I'm Donna Fiducia.
And I'm Don Neuen. And this is Cowboy Logic Radio.
Cowboys didn't dance, didn't wear designer shirts. When their hearts were filled with memories, their bodies filled with hurt. They would sit around the campfire and exchange a piercing glares. Back when the West was really wild, cowboys didn't dance.
And welcome to Cowboy Logic Radio, everyone.
Good
I'm Donna
evening,
Fiducia.
ladies and gentlemen. My name's Don Neuen. Let me be the first to welcome you to tonight's riveting episode of Cowboy Logic Radio. I mean riveting, ladies and gentlemen. And I am so pleased to be the first to welcome you to the big show. Back to you, Donna.
You had the entire audience at the South Carolina Myrtle Beach Tea Party Coalition Convention yelling at the end of the second day,
This is true, ladies and gentlemen. I had a room full of patriots that knew my name. And not only did they know my name, they recited my name back to me when I asked them what my name was.
And your name recited is the same backwards and forwards.
That's right. The last name it is.
Yes.
Now, there's something else that's fascinating about that trip to South Carolina.
What's that?
And that is, Donna, that a number of people came up to me and they said, "Hey, you're that other guy." Because when we were introduced by Joe Dugan, it was no, it wasn't. It was Donna Fiducia and that other guy.
Hey, I gotta give a huge hat tip to Judicial Watch, still continuing to keep at it. And man, it was such a treat to meet Tom Fitton and to introduce him on stage. And I think after about 2 or 3 days, he left his introduction that I did for him.
This is true.
Plus his speech up there on his website, and posted it, and I believe it had almost 80,000 hits.
That's big.
A couple days later, which I must thank you, Mr. Fitton. It was great to meet you, but Judicial Watch has a statement on Andrew McCabe.
Ooh, let's get right to that, Donna.
Well, quote unquote, according to Tom Fitton, Judicial Watch uncovered documents months ago that should have triggered Mr. McCabe's removal. And last week we were given the full stonewall by the FBI on McCabe's text messages. Nevertheless, the disturbing disclosures about McCabe's conduct from Judicial Watch litigation obviously spurred irresistible public pressure for McCabe's removal. You know, I got to tell you, the hashtag release the memo has just gone absolutely nuts. And, they are going
those of us that are hip and in the know, Donna, use the word viral.
Yeah,
it's gone viral.
It's gone viral, yes.
Yes. Now say that again. Whatever you were just reading about the memo and hashtag.
Oh, the hashtag release the memo has gone viral.
There you go. Very good, Donna.
Okay. Judicial Watch.
Now, hold on a second. I need to ask you something. Mm-hmm. When was it that they released these documents? You said a month ago?
Over a month ago. Yeah, months ago, actually, that should have triggered McCabe's removal. But Judicial Watch also says they recently uncovered that McCabe, despite massive contributions from Clinton ally Terence McAuliffe, by the way.
Terence McAuliffe.
To his wife's...
Bad hombre, Donna.
Really?
Bad hombre.
To McCabe's wife's 2015 political campaign, did not recuse himself from the Clinton email investigation until just a week before the 2016 presidential election. I mean, it's just... The fish totally is rotting from the head down. There's just no doubt about it.
Let's go back to December 23rd, 17, when Donald Trump tweeted, quote, "How can FBI Deputy Director Andrew McCabe, the man in charge, along with Leakin' James Comey of the phony Hillary Clinton investigation, including 33,000 allegedly deleted emails, be given $700,000 for wife's campaign by Clinton puppets during investigation?"
Well,
that was December 23rd that Trump tweeted that. Now, hold on a second. Okay. Let's go back to July 2017. Mm-hmm. Trump's tweet, quote, "Why didn't AG Sessions replace acting FBI Director Andrew McCabe, a Comey friend who was in charge of Clinton investigation but got big dollars, $700,000 for his wife's political run from Hillary Clinton and her representatives? Drain the swamp." That is tweeting back in July of 2017 by El Presidente Trumpo.
And you know what's happening now? The mainstream media is saying it's Donald Trump's fault that McCabe got ousted. They're saying, oh, did Trump get him ousted? Because remember, they had to have this big brouhaha over Comey, and because Trump did fire Comey. But Trump had nothing to do with this, really. This is finally the wheels of justice moving very slowly and getting McCabe's butt out of there.
Well, don't you find it odd that McCabe steps down the day after FBI Director Chris Wray read the memo?
Well, apparently it's a pretty damning memo. So they
hold on. Let me follow up with one more tweet while I'm quoting tweets. Here's an all-time favorite of ours, Eric Holder, disgraced former attorney general who's been, I believe, held in contempt of Congress, if I'm not mistaken. On Monday, Eric Holder tweets out, quote, FBI director, let me restate that so for accuracy. Quote, FBI Deputy Director Andrew McCabe is and has been a dedicated public servant who has served this country well.
Coming from Eric
Holder. Mr. Fast and Furious. Mr. Gibson Guitars.
I am so, let's raid Gibson Guitar. I'm so bad at finding things quickly, but I did hear just before we came down here that Comey has been tweeting. I mean, Comey's got nerve. Tweeting how great I can't find it fast enough, darn it, how great Andrew McCabe has been. Well, this is that whole inner circle. That's the whole problem.
That'd be the swamp, Donna.
All right, so let me give you some insight as to how, first of all, because Donald Trump did tweet what he tweeted, of course, this is what the mainstream media is focusing on now. Trump actually tried to get McCabe fired, because remember the big brouhaha over Comey? They want it to happen again. Well, that's not the case.
Who am I, Donna?
All right.
Who am I?
I don't know.
I'm Don Neuen, ladies and gentlemen, and I'd like to welcome you back to the show. Back to you, Donna.
I thought you were going to say, who am I? Why am I here?
No. I was simply asking you who I was.
Oh, okay.
Who I be.
Yes, this
who
is
I
true.
am.
However,
We be toys.
However, Chris Wray reads the memo and then says, you know what? You're out of here. But the thing is, McCabe is still going to get his benefits at this point and his retirement, which I don't think should happen. I'm sorry. I think Comey,
we call that a pension.
Well, I don't think he should get anything.
I don't think he should either, especially if he is found guilty of something.
Disgraced, exactly. So now it's up to Donald Trump. He has, 5 days to see whether he's going to allow this memo to be released?
Yes, he is going to review it for a total of 5 days, or up to 5 days.
Let me just
Why am I talking this way? Who am I, Donna?
You're Don Neuen.
You know, the people at WLBB know that.
Yes.
And when we're shopping
And so do the listeners.
at the local stores in Carroll County, they come up to me, Donna, and they go, You're
Don Neuen.
And at that point I go, yes, I am. Yes, I am. Back to you, Donna.
But the thing is, this you should note, along party lines, there was not one Democrat that voted to have this memo released. Okay?
I believe
so just
that
keep that in mind, all you folks who
Adam Schiff may have shifted his pants.
Yes, he might.
I think that's what he's doing right now over all this. He is laying a massive shift over this.
You hear this?
What is that?
That's the swamp slowly starting to
Is
drain.
that what that sound effect was?
Well,
I would have never guessed that,
It was the best way
Donna.
I could do it with my mouth. Sorry, but
I would have never guessed that, Donna. But now I know that sound if I ever hear it again.
Slowly starting to drain. You gotta love it. I would, if I were Donald Trump, I would have signed the authorization to release that memo within 5 minutes. But
Well,
I
I
guess
think he needs to preview it.
He does have to.
Hey, who said this, Donna? Very sad day, I think, in the history of this committee.
Schiff.
Who said this?
Schiff.
The document represents another effort to distract from the Russia probe and seeks to selectively and misleadingly characterize classified information in an effort to protect the president at any cost.
Schiff.
That's correct.
You know,
Adam Schiff.
Yep.
California representative.
This needs to
Democrat.
trickle down to Rod Rosenstein as well. He needs to get his butt the hell out of there. And Jeff Sessions, I guess I don't know whether Sessions is just sitting back and letting this all play out, but this is taking too long. I'm sorry.
I actually think that all of the Democrats are completely freaking out over this memo. And one telltale sign is that I believe that Nancy Pelosi's face actually has fissures in it. It's starting to split open. And if you look down into one of those cracks, you will see liquid, hot magma.
Thank you, Austin Powers. This memo, though.
Wait a minute. Who said this, Donna?
Adam Schiff.
No. Quote, if you want to know whether or not the dossier was used in court proceedings, whether or not it was vetted before it was used, if you are interested in who paid for the dossier, then yes, you'll want the memo to come out.
Donald Trump?
No, Donna Fiducia, no.
Who?
That would be from the great state of South Carolina, Trey Gowdy. And his unique hairdo.
Well, it's about time Trey Gowdy finally gets something accomplished besides complaining, investigating, complaining again, and then nothing arises. This might be the first time something actually arises from a Trey Gowdy investigation. Sorry.
Who said this,
but that's
Donna?
how I feel.
Who said this? Not to release the memo, saying it would be, quote, extraordinarily reckless and could harm national security and ongoing investigations. Who said that?
Hillary Clinton.
That was some top Justice Department official urging Devin Nunes to not release this memo.
The whole thing that this memo shows
does not want to be seen by the Democrats.
No, because this memo shows how FISA warrants have been abused. This makes Watergate look like nothing, folks. Absolutely
I think what they're going to find, and I'm going out on a limb here. I think that they are going to find that the FBI, quite possibly, has misled the FISA court.
You think? Maybe?
I don't think that it has anything to do with a failure on the FISA court. I think it has to do
because they've been
with a fraudulent affidavit.
Well, that's true. Let me explain something today, or reiterate to you guys today what Rush Limbaugh was talking about. And I'm giving credit where credit is due, because this is why Rush Limbaugh has been on the air for over 30 years. And he is still very much on the cutting edge of societal evolution, which is what he claims. And he is. There was a New York Times article that he was talking about in which they were saying that the Trump administration was trying to squelch this story that eventually led to Comey being fired. Okay, and Trump went ahead and fired Comey. It was a New York Times story. So McCabe goes to Rance Priebus, who was the chief of staff at the time. This is how long ago it was. And says that the New York Times story is bogus. Essentially saying that Trump got, Comey fired from bogus things. And McCabe was saying that no, the New York Times story was bogus, and that McCabe initiated a conversation with Rance Priebus at the time. Well, so Rance Priebus, quite rightly, says to McCabe, well, then go public with it. Why don't you go public with it? And McCabe refused. And a week later, CNN has a story, again from another leak, that Rance Priebus asked the FBI director, or assistant director at the time, Andrew McCabe, to go public with this report to shoot down this story, essentially blaming Priebus. Comprende? All right. And obviously that was not the case. They did a 180. And even though it was McCabe that initiated the conversation with Priebus and the information, and then Priebus said, they flip it and blame Priebus. So then they think Priebus is this big leak. I think McCabe was the big leak. But But this is journalism trying to, obviously, these journalists, CNN quote-unquote journalists, trying to cover up for McCabe and all this other, and Fusion GPS. And it was all orchestrated by these guys for this New York Times story. And this is, it's
all going to come out, ladies and gentlemen, and when it does, it's not going to be very pretty if you've got a D behind your name.
It's going to be a house of cards. Hey, congratulations to Hillary Clinton and all the folks at the Grammys, the lowest rated Grammys in history, and Hillary Clinton made an appearance.
And I'm in the entertainment industry, okay? These people need to focus on entertaining and get out of politics,
That's pretty
because
darn
all it
funny.
does is plummet the ratings. Hey, listen, I think it's safe to say, ladies and gentlemen, that the majority of college students, and I'm not going to say all of them, but the majority of college students are mental midgets. Mm-hmm. They're dumber than a box of rocks because they've been indoctrinated for years and years and years.
They're not taught common sense.
They're not taught common sense. They walk around with a cell phone and they rely on a smartphone to give them all of the information that they possibly need to get through life. Mm-hmm. Big hat tip to an organization by the name of Campus Reform. Now, Campus Reform went out. It's a conservative organization.
Man on the street interviews.
Among other things.
Student on the streets.
Mental midgets on the street. And they interviewed one of the largest mental midget factories on the planet Earth. And that is the students at NYU, New York University.
Yeah, that's up there. That's in the top, that's for sure.
Now, here's the deal. We're going to play a soundbite here in a second. Last Monday, a week before the State of the Union, they took their man on the street out on the streets of NYU's campus. And they asked these mental midget students what they thought about President Trump's State of the Union speech. Now, again, you have to put this you got to wrap your head around this, and especially if we've got any mental midget college students listening to us that haven't found the right way to think and behave. And that is the questions were being asked about a speech that has not yet taken place.
And the guy also interjected some things throughout the questions that he gave to these students about what Trump did during the State of the Union that, again, had not happened yet. This is hilarious.
I'm Kevin Phillips with Campus Reform. Today we're at NYU getting students' opinions on President Trump's State of the Union address. Except that speech won't happen for another 7 days. But what will they say when we ask them what they thought of it? Let's find out. Well, we've been getting people's reactions today to the State of the Union last night. Some people were saying that it was the most racist State of the Union that's ever happened. What was your reaction to everything that was said?
I didn't watch it because I couldn't bring myself to watch it.
Quite racist at the very least, if not up there with most racist.
Yeah. Wow. It's already quickly climbing the scale. Some of the people said today that they thought his immigration stance that he outlined last night was especially hateful.
Very offensive.
What do you think of it?
It's something that I wouldn't have expected to happen in our lifetime.
It's offensive. It is crazy, but I'm not shocked by it, by what he's done in the past. So
pretty ugly. I believe what I'm hearing about his rough nature and the hate that he probably said.
He told the Democrats the wall got 10 feet higher because they didn't stand up and give him applause at one point. What do you think of all that?
It's the behavior of someone who refuses to accept accountability for their failures.
The way he acts, you shouldn't be acting like that if you're the leader of the country, regardless of what party you're in. So that frustrates me a lot.
I mean, it doesn't surprise me that was his State of the Union address.
Hopefully everything that he's outlined can be overturned by the public opinion.
Was there one thing in particular that you saw people most upset about?
probably with immigration going on with the whole DACA thing and him trying to build the wall.
One of the craziest moments when he started a build the wall chant with all the Republicans that were there.
Okay.
People on social media were accusing him of basically using the State of the Union as a campaign event.
Yeah, that's kind of ridiculous.
I think it's absolutely crazy.
The fact that he started a chant, he's big on those.
What's your reaction?
I think it reveals that he has the temperament of a 3-year-old.
People, a lot of times, they're trying to say, don't listen to what he's saying, and they just want to shut it down just because it's Trump saying it. Do you think they have any ground there?
I don't think so. I think there are enough progressive and intellectual people that really analyze what he's saying.
Do you think he's going to follow through with the things that he promised last night?
I don't know. We'll see. He said he was going to become president. He became president.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, there you go. We are screwed. Big time.
He's racist. He's Islamophobic.
They didn't like the wall chant.
Yeah, they didn't like the wall chant.
When Trump got all the Republicans up chanting, build the wall. You know, ladies and gentlemen, those of you that have any students in college, please do whatever you can to repair the damage that has taken place to these children. They will vote if they're not already voting, and someday they're going to run our country probably into the ground unless we somehow turn them around.
Someday they're going to attempt to get a job and then find out, you know what? Trump was right.
You can't use your cell phone.
But you know what? The whole thing with Hillary Clinton talking at the Grammys and she was treated like a rock star again, I'm thinking to myself, why don't we let Hillary Clinton give the rebuttal to the State of the Union?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Hey, before we go to break, ladies and gentlemen, I really want to draw some attention to the great people that support Cowboy Logic Radio. Our digital flagship network is Talk America Radio. You can find that at talkamericaradio.us. If you're listening to this show between 9 p.m. and 6 a.m. Eastern, this is a part of our Talk America Radio overnight programming package. It's something that we offer our affiliates, our AM/FM terrestrial affiliates. I would encourage you to contact your local radio station if they're playing reruns or if they're playing programming that's quite frankly stale, and suggest that they get in touch with Ron Phillips at Talk America Radio. Again, talkamericaradio.us. It's free of charge, and we can provide programming for them overnight. Now, we've also got some fantastic terrestrial or AM/FM affiliates, and these folks at these radio stations believe in what we do, and they support us. And we are so grateful for that, as well as you, the beloved listeners. We've got WDDQ, Talk 92.1 FM that serves South Georgia, WJHC, Talk 107.5 that serves North Florida, and we'd like to hat tip both Scott James and Jack Ring that are affiliated with that organization. These guys have believed and supported us for, what, Donna, 4 or 5 years now?
Yeah.
Going on? I mean, it's a heck of a long time. And we've also got some great friends that are serving West Georgia and East Alabama with WLBB News Talk 1330 AM 106.3 FM, Steve Graddick, Dave Rozak, Colin Worthington, Michael Vincent, Lori Wilson, and of course, the fantastic Mitch Gray.
You know, nobody calls a game like Mitch Gray. I don't care where you're listening, national or local. Mitch Gray calls the best sports of any sportscaster I've ever heard. And we live in Roopville, by the way, where Keith Jackson was born. And we do wish Keith Jackson's family the best. May he rest in peace. Roopville native Keith Jackson passing away at age 89. But man, I'm telling you, Mitch Gray just calls a wonderful game.
All right, we got to go to break. Who's coming up, Donna?
Hey, we have Justin DANHOFF, and he's from the National Center for Public Policy Research, coming up after the break. Then Megan Barth, she's the Reagan Babe, ReaganBabe.com, and Tom DeWEESE from the American Policy Center. It's all coming up next on Cowboy Logic Radio.
Cowboys didn't dance, didn't wear designer shirts. Their hearts were filled with memories, their bodies filled with hurt. They would sit around the campfire and exchange a piercing glance. Back when the West was really wild, cowboys didn't dance. When cowboys didn't dance, didn't wear designer shirts. When their hearts were filled with memories, their bodies filled with hurt. They would sit around the campfire and exchange a piercing glance. Back when the West was really wild, cowboys didn't dance.
Check us out on the web at cowboylogic.us.
Hi, thank you for listening. My name is Ron Phillips, and I'm the owner and operations manager of Talk America Radio. It is with great pride that I offer you these two 24/7 streams of some of the finest talk radio programming in the country, but I need your support. Talk America Radio is a listener-supported network. That means we need your help to continue to offer the quality programming you're hearing right now. Please visit talkamericaradio.us and click the Support Us button. You can contribute monthly or send us a one-time amount. We'll put it to good use continuing to share the American voice. Thank you.
Let me talk to you, black people. When you vote for blacks and put them in office under the banner of the Democrat Party, please explain to me what black people get as a result. This was not a nap that we have been taking. We are in a coma. You know what the interesting thing about pensions is? That's today's money given to people who ain't doing nothing for you today. Get off that black Democrat tit that they've been sucking on. Your country is being stolen from you, and the promise is being stolen from your children, and they're telling you it's all right while the rest of the world is trying to lap us. Well, why are we doing so poorly? 2 words: teachers' unions. Are you kidding me?
Black Man Thinking, Monday nights, 9 p.m.
You cannot retreat to your safe spaces. There are no therapy poodles allowed, especially when facing the truth. And that's just how we like it. Straight, hard, conservatarian talk, on the rocks, no chaser. Served up on the Adrian Slade Show. Small, limited government, constitutional conversations, exclusively on Talk America Radio. Every Saturday morning, 9 a.m. on Talk America Radio Liberty.
This is Denise Simon. 18 hours a day, I live in a world as an intelligence analyst. Intelligence analyst. Intelligence analyst. Intelligence analyst. Intelligence analyst. What I find is reprehensible. What I find is terrifying. What I find is treasonous. 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 The mainstream media has completely failed the American people. 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 Join me for the Denise Simon Experience every Thursday night at 9 p.m. Eastern.
You're listening to your local news source, WLBB, News Talk 1330 and FM 106.3.
Hey everybody, they're back on again!
Cowboys didn't dance, didn't wear designer shirts, when their hearts were filled with memories, their bodies filled with hurt. They would sit around the campfire and exchange a piercing glare. Back when the West was really wild, cowboys didn't dance.
Welcome back to Cowboy Logic Radio. I'm Donna Fiducia.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Don Neuen. And don't you think this show has been absolutely riveting thus far, ladies and gentlemen? I most certainly do.
You answer your own
Donna,
question.
do you agree?
Oh, of course, Don.
And it's about to go off the chain, ladies and gentlemen.
Absolutely, because we're going to talk about the economy, among other things, with one Justin DANHOFF of the National Center for Public Policy Research. You can find them at nationalcenter.org and on Twitter at National Center. Justin, the Center's Free Enterprise Project focuses on shareholder activism and the confluence of big government and big business. That's a mouthful. Justin DANHOFF, welcome to Cowboy Logic Radio.
Hey, Don and Donna, I appreciate the opportunity to talk with you today.
Thanks, Justin. I'd like to personally welcome you to the Big Cowboy Logic Radio Show. Don't forget, ladies and gentlemen, I'm Don Neuen. Back to you, Donna.
Now, just go away for a minute, will you?
I don't do that.
Justin, I attempt to day trade stocks during the day now. That's my day job. No longer at the Fox News Channel or in New York City trying to, be a journalist, which is really not possible any longer, I don't think, in the mainstream media. So during the day, when I have the Fox Business Channel on, they always show the press briefing, and Sarah Huckabee Sanders is up there asking question after question of just stupidity. And I'm thinking to myself, will they ever ask a question that about the economy? Almost every single day, we're hitting new highs. We've had $7 trillion in wealth in the past year alone in the market. And in 1 year, Donald Trump has done 70% in the market of 8 years of Barack Obama. And nothing is said. It just drives me nuts.
Well, nothing is said because it's not in the interest of the mainstream media to promote the positives, right? Well, there's two aspects of it. The first is the old line, if it bleeds, it leads, right? So negative stories are really where the mainstream media likes to run to, and specifically when there's a conservative leadership, whether that's the House leadership, the Senate leadership, or in this case, the presidency. It's not in their interest because they are not journalists, as you say, anymore. The mainstream media, they have become just partisan hacks. There's no other way to say it. They have an agenda, and that agenda is to bring down the conservative agenda, right? And so if you actually tell the truth about the economy, then, you're going against your own interest if you're in the liberal mainstream media. And so, I'm glad that you're talking about it. We talk about it as well. And I think that anybody looking at their 401k, they're talking about it at the dinner table and talking about it in a very exciting way. And don't forget, next month, those paychecks that are going to be coming into, millions and millions and millions of Americans, they're going to be bigger.
That's just
starting
crumbs.
in February.
Nah, it's just crumbs.
That's right.
Yeah, I was just going to say, isn't it ironic as well as humorous as how the left, not only the media, which I consider to be an appendage of the Democrat Party, but also talking about people like Nancy Pelosi and some of these schmucks that are in Congress that are belittling not only the bonuses but the tax incentives that are going to be putting more money back into Americans' pockets, when in fact Barack Obama's abysmal failure for 8 years, at best, put numbers like maybe $40 a year into someone's pocket at best. Unless, of course, you were a leech on society, and then, of course, you were making in excess of $60,000 to $80,000 a year.
Well, and folks paying the Obamacare fines, they weren't getting an extra $40. They were losing lots and lots and lots of money. And I think that one of the undersold stories of the economy that's going to it's going to eventuate throughout this year specifically is that we're seeing these $1,000 crumb bonuses, as W. Wasserman Schultz and Nancy Pelosi call them, at the major corporations, right? But what you don't hear about, because they're not really big enough to get the news, is, the pizza shop that's going to expand and hire one or two more workers or increase the minimum wage for their employees. The small town, cupcake baker. That's actually the driver of the economy, right? Is the small corporations that are going to continue to grow. And the number one reason I think that that's going to happen is part of the tax cut that is not talked about a lot is that you can 100% expense a business purchase in the year in which you make it. So for those who aren't quite as tax savvy, maybe haven't run a small business, that means if I'm that pizza shop owner and I've had, the same crummy ovens for 12 years and they've been breaking down, I can buy a new oven. And normally you'd be able to expense that perhaps over 10 to 15 years.
Right.
Now you can expense the entire amount of that oven in year one. And that is going to be a major driver of the economy as small businesses all across America are going to upgrade, renovate, hire, pay more workers, more money. And that's really going to be, as great as the economy's already been, as great as the stock market is doing, the now, in effect, tax cuts are going to mean small businesses are going to go booming this year. And that's really going to be something incredible to watch unfold.
I agree with you. As a small business owner, I totally agree with you on that. You mentioned something earlier that kind of stopped me in my tracks, and I realized that I had been in error all week.
Uh-oh.
Yeah. When you were talking about Debbie Wasserman Schultz making that smart-ass statement about the crumbs and belittling this significant money that is going into Americans' pockets, I didn't realize it was Debbie Wasserman Schultz. I actually thought it was Dee Snider from Twisted Sister. And here I am thinking, what the hell's this guy getting into politics for? I thought all this time it was Dee Snider from Twisted Sister. And in fact, it was Debbie Wasserman Schultz.
I think it was Jar Jar Binks from Star
again
Wars.
By Debbie Wasserman Schultz. It never ceases to amaze me.
I believe they do visit the same hairdresser. I think that's the issue that you're right.
It's definitely something most disgustingly.
But Justin Danhoff at the National Center for Public Policy Research, you are great at following the money trail. Tell us a little bit about Walgreens and how they're supporting sanctuary cities in a roundabout way.
Yeah, so first of all, let me just do a little bit of backstory for the listeners who aren't familiar with us at the National Center. I direct at the National Center what's known as the Free Enterprise Project. And we started this about 8 years ago now because the National Center's mission is actually to be the voice wherever we see the conservative movement being the quietest, is to fill in that void. And so we realized that shareholder activism was only coming from the left for decades and decades and decades. The unions, the green groups, the liberal asset managers, and more recently, the state retirement funds of liberal states such as California and New York. And so we decided, wait a minute, a lot of corporations take some pretty bad actions. I think back to, wait a minute, how did we get Obamacare? Well, that came from the pharmaceutical industry, right? And the health insurance industry, they wrote the bill. When it comes to some of the, green energy regulations that are trying to, stifle energy production in this country, those are written in large part by big industry as well. So we decided, wait a minute, let's take a step back. Let's steal the left's playbook and be corporate activists from the right. Let's try and push corporations back to the free market rails that got them to the places that they are now, and groups and companies that are funding interests that are opposed to the conservative majority. Let's go after that as well. And so that brings us to Walgreens. We did a little bit of digging, and it turns out that Walgreens, and by the way, quite a few other corporations as well, are funding pro-amnesty, pro-sanctuary city organizations, specifically two of them. The first is Unidos US. And now the listeners can be forgiven if they don't know or haven't heard yet of Unidos US, because Unidos US has been around for a long time, but not under that name. This is, of course, the group that was formerly La Raza, the radical Hispanic group that has been around for decades, pushing a very racialized agenda in the United States on issues such as claiming that since the United States stole California, New Mexico, Arizona, Texas, and other municipalities in places like Oregon and Colorado, that we should give that back to the Mexican government because the U.S. stole it.
Didn't we pay for that? I thought in the end, after we beat the crap out of them in the war, we ended up paying for it back in the 1880s.
Oh, but we didn't pay our fair share.
Oh,
right?
I see. It's never going to be good enough.
Yes. And so this group who, they believe in open borders, they have no respect for American sovereignty. And as I said, and this is the point that brought us to the Walgreens shareholder meeting last week, they support sanctuary city policy. And in this country that is evenly divided on lots of issues, sanctuary city isn't one of them. 80% of the American public opposes sanctuary city policy. And that cuts across all demographic, gender lines, and conservative and liberal lines as well. But, 80% is a massive number to get anybody, to get 80% of Americans to agree on anything these days is massive. And so that was the message that I brought to the Walgreens shareholder meeting, and then I asked their executives point blank, is why would you risk your reputation? Why would you risk your shareholder value by donating to such radical, racialized organizations? And their answer was compelling for a few reasons. The first answer I got was that, hey, Justin, we haven't heard this complaint before. We didn't really know that about these organizations that we're supporting, and nobody has brought it to our attention. You know what that smacks of and that speaks to? It speaks to the importance of why we started the Free Enterprise Project, because conservatives have a collective action problem when it comes to calling out business when they're doing wrong. We're very good at calling out Nancy Pelosi, President Obama when he was in office, and Chuck Schumer when they're doing wrong. But we're afraid of going after business because business in the end does a lot of good things for this country. But business is often nowadays being pushed very far to the left and funding lots of leftist initiatives. And so conservatives need to wake up and realize that, we've got dozens of major American corporations funding these radical groups, and no one is calling them out on it. And so That was the first response, and it really smacks of the collective action problem that we have on the right.
What really scares me, though, is that you're saying that La Raza, which a lot of people know, keeps all these radical groups keep morphing. So La Raza being renamed Unidos US is huge, because I didn't know that. I mean, I certainly have heard of La Raza. Then all of a sudden, little by little, if we're not really looking into this, we're not going to hear about La Raza, but all of a sudden we're going to hear Unidos US. And that's, I'm sure there's a lot of organizations that are like that. They keep morphing, so we can't keep track of them. But Don had a question.
Yeah, I just want to stress, and let me ask you this. Did Walgreens walk back this whole thing, and are they going to stop the supporting of this, or do they just look at you like they were deer in the headlights and give you some feeble "we didn't know" BS about this? Because if they're not going to walk it back entirely, then I'm encouraging all of our listeners to never, ever, ever, ever step in a Walgreens again.
They didn't walk it back entirely, and I would, encourage the listeners to do even more than just not shop there. They did commit to a review, and believe me, I'm going to hold them to that review. And if the review doesn't yield, well, shoot, we probably shouldn't support these radical racial groups anymore. Then, yeah, we're going to continue to hold their feet to the fire. But I would encourage the listeners to come to our website, nationalcenter.org. There's also another great group out there that tracks corporate America called Second Vote. You can go to their website and reach out directly to Walgreens. Track me down. I'll help you if you can't figure it out. But, there's links. Just contact Walgreens Investor Relations. Contact our customer service line. Let them know that you're no longer going to be doing business with them. Let them know that you're going to go to one of their rivals, because that is where we can have a real effect. Liberal America is very, very, very good at this. When a company steps out of bounds in the eyes of liberal America, they are boycotted, they are protested.
Yep.
When it happens on the right, we're not as good at it. So I would encourage your listeners to reach out directly to Walgreens and let your voice be heard, because if we wait until the next opportunity that I get to go to the shareholder meeting next year, that they can dismiss it pretty easily. But we've brought this issue to, we're bringing this to the press now. We're bringing it to the American public, more importantly, and the American public, the American people that are offended by this, they're the ones that can have the real impact here and have the real effect and get this funding cut off.
Who are some of the other corporations that are contributing and supporting this sanctuary state and sanctuary city absurdity?
We've got Time Warner Cable. They're a funder of both, unsurprisingly, right? Southwest Airlines, actually, believe it or not. Verizon, General Motors, Government Motors. Shocking, right?
No, yeah, really, no shock there.
Comcast, no shock there. Very liberal leadership at Comcast. They very, very liberal. Bank of America, run again by a very big liberal. And so these are some of the major corporations that are involved in these activities, and they need to hear from you. And believe me, as this shareholder season ramps up at the Free Enterprise Project, we're going to be going and knocking on door to door to door and bringing it to the boards of directors and the CEOs, bringing this issue to their attention. And we hope to have some real change, and your listeners are going to be a big part of that.
Well, and in speaking to the listeners, our beloved listeners, ladies and gentlemen, you got to remember that these corporations that Justin just mentioned are fomenting, supporting financially, probably at a large scale, cities and local governments, along with states that are, without a doubt, willing to put illegal citizens, people that are here illegally, over the citizens of their own cities. And it's appalling to watch these people get on TV and try so feebly to argue their point. I mean, it's a pathetic argument. And they never, ever, ever will actually come out and answer, why are you putting illegals, people that are here illegally, in front of people that are here legally and that are citizens? They can't answer it.
Yeah, they can't answer it. And I think one thing to remember that gets lost in the fog, because this does become a partisan debate sometimes, is that this isn't a gray area, right? This is black letter law. Sanctuary cities by, virtue of the U.S. code, when they arrest someone that is a criminal illegal alien. And again, this is where it gets confusing for some people. It's not for the crime of being a criminal illegal alien. It's when they commit another crime in that jurisdiction. No matter what the crime, it's when they commit another crime in that jurisdiction and they are arrested. By law, by U.S. code, that jurisdiction must turn over that name of that individual to the federal authorities. And any jurisdiction that does not is in violation of federal law. And I want to say another thing on this is that the Trump administration is finally trying to do something about it, where administration after administration after administration before him has ignored this issue. And he's not going to be able to do it immediately, but he is using Department of Homeland Security and DOJ resources, and I believe they're going to craft something that is going to be effective going forward, because unfortunately the way our stupid bureaucracy works, he can't just unilaterally unring the bell that's already been done. And so what I mean by that is when states apply for grants, whether it be to fix a road or build a bridge or for schools, that money can be their ties can be put on that money, but the money that's already been spoken for, that's already been dedicated and earmarked for this, that, or the other thing, he can't tie a rider onto that. But he can tie a rider onto new money, saying that you must comply with federal law in order to receive this new money. And so going forward, let's hope that that works through the court systems, because, of course, in San Francisco and New York and Chicago, they're going to sue over that provision. And so let's hope we have some jurists and judges of sound mind that get to, deliberate on these cases. But for now, companies that are funding this disgusting initiative that places illegal criminal aliens ahead of United States citizens, those companies are going to hear from us at the Free Enterprise Project. I hope they hear from your listeners as well. We're going to spread the word, and we're going to hopefully get this corporate funding knocked out.
We're talking with Justin DANHOFF of the National Center for Public Policy Research. Find them at nationalcenter.org and on Twitter at National Center. But specifically what the center is working on, the Free Enterprise Project, as Justin's been talking about, is the voice where conservative movement has been quieted. His group is really the only conservative group going into these shareholder meetings. And it really is eye-opening, Justin. Walgreens, Bank of America, Time Warner, Southwest, Verizon, General Motors, Comcast, just to name a few, backing sanctuary cities, backing really illegal immigration. It's so frustrating that the Department of Justice really, at this point, you're saying, I know it's a slow grind before they do anything. But on the other hand, what gets me is California, I believe it is, correct me if I'm wrong, is actually going to go after law enforcement that might want to do the right thing and report these illegals that are, breaking the law above and beyond coming here illegally.
Yeah, California is you're exactly right. They're attempting to pull that off. We'll see. That's going to be a protracted court battle, if I had to guess. I wouldn't want to risk being the officer, though, that has to stand up and try and do the right thing if there is an officer of such courage in the state of California. But it just goes to show you how extreme the politics of that state has become, right? We're talking about an entire sanctuary state where they are trying to criminalize officers who would attempt to follow federal law. Just think about that. And if you have a choice, there's no wonder that the population of California is actually the legal population, that is, of California, is decreasing. When you think about issues like that.
No doubt. Hey, Justin, let me ask you this: what kind of money are these corporations like Walgreens, Southwest Air, Time Warner, Verizon, General Motors, among others, what kind of money are they dumping into this? Have you guys been able to wrap your head around that?
In some cases, we have the numbers with Walgreens. They haven't provided the specific numbers, but in many instances, we're talking six figures to these groups. And for a nonprofit like La Raza, and I'm going to call them La Raza because that's what they are.
Yep.
That's a significant amount of money. And so, we're talking in some instances 5 figures and some 6. I haven't seen any 7-figure donations to La Raza from corporate America, but I wouldn't be terribly surprised if that's out there as well. And again, part of what you were saying a second ago, Donna, too, is it really speaks to why part of why this is happening is what I talked about at the beginning, is the collective action problem on the right. And as you say, we are often the lone voice in the wilderness. I go to a few dozen shareholder meetings of some of the major corporations in America every single year on a broad array of topics, from taxes to healthcare to the environment, pushing, again, a conservative free market agenda, trying to get companies back in line. But while I'm there doing that, there are dozens of well-funded leftists, again, that range from the state retirement funds, from the liberal asset managers to PETA to Greenpeace to the AFL-CIO, dozens of well-funded liberal activists trying to push corporate America even further left. And, the old squeaky wheel, right? Mm-hmm. They're often getting their way with corporate America because they're the ones in there putting the heavy pressure on. And so we try and counterbalance that the best we can. But again, conservatives have ignored this at our peril, I should say, for a very, very long time. And the time for that is over. I always say when I'm on these radio programs, I would love to have copycats out there. I'm proud to be the director of a very unique project in the conservative movement. But you know what? If there was 5 or 6 others that spun off and decided to copy exactly what I do, heck, I would teach you how to do it. I'd be happy to have the company. I like being the sharp end of the spear, but the lone voice in the wilderness can sometimes get lonely.
Well, there's power in numbers, and we need more numbers just like you. We need more people and more organizations just like you, because quite honestly, the left, the progressive movement, the Marxist movement, the Democrat Party has mastered what the right needs to figure out how to do, and that is A, mobilize, B, get numbers.
And stop shooting themselves in the foot.
And start taking the gloves off.
Absolutely. And people like you, Justin Danhoff, are at really the forefront of this, which is wonderful. And I always say, unfortunately, though, a lot of the right are the ones that are raising their families, going to work, putting their nose to the grindstone, paying the taxes. They're the ones, unfortunately, that are doing the work, whereas for some reason the left, this is what they do for a living. They're so much better funded, so much better organized. And people like you, Justin Danhoff, at the National Center for Public Policy Research, we really need you doing the yeoman's work that you're doing. Find them at nationalcenter.org and at National Center. Look up the Free Enterprise Project. Find out about these big corporations that are in the pocketbooks of the left, or funding the pockets of the left, we should say. And Justin Danhoff, thank you so much for joining us here on Cowboy Logic Radio.
Thank you guys very much. I really appreciate it.
Went by way too fast. Coming up after the break, we're going to be talking to Megan Barth, thereaganbabe.com, and Tom DeWEESE of the American Policy Center. It's coming up next on Cowboy Logic Radio.
Cowboys didn't dance, didn't wear designer shirts. Their hearts were filled with memories, their bodies filled with hurt. They would sit around the campfire and exchange a piercing glance. Back when the West was really wild, cowboys didn't dance, yes. When cowboys didn't dance, didn't wear designer shirts. When their hearts were filled with memories, their bodies filled with hurt. They would sit around the campfire and exchange a piercing glance. Back when the West was really wild, cowboys didn't dance.
Check us out on the web at cowboylogic.us.
Hello, everyone. I'm Donna Fiducia.
And I'm Don Neuen. And this is Cowboy Logic Radio.
Cowboys didn't dance, didn't wear designer shirts. When their hearts were filled with memories, their bodies filled with hurt. They would sit around the campfire and exchange a piercing glance. Back when the West was really wild, cowboys didn't dance.
Welcome back to Cowboy Logic Radio. I'm Donna Fiducia, along with Don Neuen. And our special guest for this next half hour is the Reagan Babe, better known as Megan Barth. But, just Megan, ReaganBabe.com and at ReaganBabe. It's just the coolest thing. I got to love it. Pretty soon, I'm hoping, though, that we have Reagan number 2 in Donald Trump. But let me get to your bio here, Megan. Megan Barth is the founder and proprietor of ReaganBabe.com, nationally recognized political commentator, weekly co-host for the Wayne Allen Root Show, WAR, out of Las Vegas, and you've seen her on Headline News, Newsmax TV, One America News. By the way, Liz Wheeler, Tipping Point, awesome show, folks. You got to check it out. And Megan's been on her show as well. And you've seen her op-eds published in the Canada Free Press, The Hill, American Thinker, Daily Caller. Also, Caravan to Midnight, our good friend John B. Wells. She's been on with him lately. You've seen her also on The Blaze, Lars Larson, Bill Cunningham. America Trends with Dr. Gina. Megan Barth. What a resume, and welcome to Cowboy Logic Radio.
Well, thank you. It's been a wild ride. I've enjoyed every minute of it, and I'm happy to be with you today.
Well, we have to get right down to it. Just before we brought you on, we were talking about where to start, because there's just so many places to start with what's going on in D.C. and the swamp draining that Donald Trump is trying to do, and I think getting roadblocks thrown in his way just about anywhere. So let's start off with the political corruption. Let me ask you right off the bat. Do you think Jeff Sessions is on the up and up, trying to just go slowly, cross the T's and dot the I's, or do you think he's part of the swamp?
Well, I'd say he's the middle. So I think he's trying to cross the T's and dot the I's. However, I don't like the stonewalling and the slow walking of documents out of the DOJ and FBI. It's kind of like the Republicans are acting that we don't hold the power. So I think that there needs to be a fire lit under some of that slow walking that has been going on since the Barack Obama administration. I mean, we had the State Department under Hillary Clinton that was going to refuse to release documents until like 2020. Well, we finally had a judge that came in and said, no, you're going to release them by 2018. But yet the Judiciary Committee and the investigative committees on the Hill under subpoenas have been waiting for mounds of evidence that they've requested, and due to kind of the stonewalling of the agencies, because the agencies are seeded with moles from the Barack Obama administration, where the agencies were weaponized. And these federal government agencies under Barack Obama's administration were weaponized against his political enemies. So instead of having investigators and civil servants, as they call themselves, we had activists within the Federal Bureau of Matters. Remember, it wasn't an investigation for Hillary Clinton. It was a matter. So now the whole entire FBI has been corrupted, politicized, whereby I refer to them as the Federal Bureau of Matters. And then let's just talk about the Federal Bureau of Matters, for example. Everyone wants to talk about how great they are, how competent they are, that we rely on the FBI agents every day. Well, I'm sure that 99% of the FBI agents are great people. I'm tired of hearing that talking point. But the fact is that the people at the top were absolutely rotten. And what happens is that rot goes all the way down to the core, whereby the people that are making the decisions are the political decisions, not the right decisions, not the just decisions, political decisions, by using something called an insurance policy, which was what? The Russian dossier, in order to sabotage an election and basically overthrow a government that was duly elected by the American people. And so what is that? That's called sedition. And that's the word that we really need to start talking about on a daily basis. Hashtag sedition. Hashtag sedition conspiracy. These memos that we're waiting for to be released, which show kind of the genesis of the dossier, and those people within the Barack Obama administration that were involved in the unmasking, the illegal unmasking of private individuals in and around a presidential campaign, I think is going to blow the lid off the Democrat Party, which I refer to as the Democrat Network of Criminals. The DNC equals the Democrat Network of Criminals.
That's pretty good.
Megan Barth, I think that there should be a very intense, concerted effort to unseal the emails that took place between Barack Obama under his pseudonym and Hillary Clinton. Now, those emails are sealed, as you probably know.
Right.
And Trump really shouldn't and can't be the guy to come in and go, hey, these should be unsealed. But these special investigations could. I want to get your thoughts on whether or not that should happen, if it can happen, and if it should, who should initiate it? Because I think they're very telling.
Yeah, well, here we have a conflict of the truth, right, whereby he is on record, and that's Barack Obama on record, saying that he had no idea she had a private email account, but yet he was using a pseudonym while emailing her. He acted like he was just some sort of rube that got his news, for just like we did from the papers every morning. And that brings me to my next point. The Democrat Party relies on the stupidity of the American people. And that's what Jonathan Gruber told us.
Yeah,
that the
Gruber
Democrat
was
Party,
right. I was just going to say that. We got to, it's called the stupidity of the American people. That's how Obamacare got through. And it's true, because they're a nation of sheep now instead of having any kind of common sense. And it starts in the education system.
Right. Well, and it also is perverted by the press, because the press has manipulated the truth, whereby the headlines are simply Democrat talking points. And when the narrative doesn't fit the facts, they simply just change the narrative. So regarding the pseudonym that Barack Obama, Barry Soetoro, whatever his pseudonym was, regarding that email chain, that any government document is actually the people's document. Now, we understand that some things have to be redacted due to classification, but all of that communication is part of a national archive. All of the communication that Hillary Clinton destroyed, the 33,000 emails that she destroyed after a congressional subpoena, were actually part of a national archive. Never in our history have we witnessed a Secretary of State destroy national archives. And so who's up to administering the law and executing the law and making sure that the law is applied equally to everybody is the DOJ and the investigative agencies under and within the DOJ. So it is the FBI's responsibility. It is the DOJ's responsibility. It is the Congressional Investigative Agency's responsibility, whether that's the Judiciary Committee or the Inspector General of the DOJ or whoever that is. I'm not certain, but there is. And there should be pressure upon the agency, the DOJ, to find out what types of communications were conducted between Barack Obama's alias and Hillary Clinton's secret server.
I agree.
Seems to be an awful lot of things Barack Obama's involved with that are sealed. That's just another story. We're talking with Megan Barth. Find her at ReaganBabe.com on Facebook and at ReaganBabe on Twitter. And Megan, you do a Reagan Babe radio show as well. Where is that and where can we hear it?
Well, I do, multiple radio hits across the country. And so when I can't upload those hits, that is on Reagan Babe Radio. When I do substitute for Wayne Allen Root or Nevada State Radio, there's a show called Live and Local that broadcasts on KBET throughout Nevada and Southern California. When I do sub, I upload all of those episodes. But there will be my own show coming soon that's actually in development. So we're working on that.
Oh, awesome. That's great. All right, let's talk about, well, your big thing really is sedition, as we were talking about. But let's move on also to women's issues, something that's near and dear to you. To me, what gets me very upset is how the Democrats have stolen the fact that they're the party of women. In my humble opinion, I mean, look at Hillary defending her husband. The majority of retirees right now in the government are Democrats, I feel, because they've got a lot of skeletons in the closet as well. And also, to some extent, the black community, how the Republicans have really were the party of getting rid of slavery, and how the Democrats have stolen that as well. It's very distressing to me because the Republicans just sit there and take it.
Yeah, well, you can kind of see the Democrats panicking a little bit in their unhinged accusations of, racism, homophobia, bigotry, xenophobia. But then also you can see how they're floundering, really, and losing their power because now they choose to protect illegal aliens over the rights of American citizens. We saw this with the government shutdown. Why are they doing this? There's always a method to their madness. Well, when you look at the polling and the latest polling, black unemployment is at a historic all-time low. The same with Hispanic unemployment. The same with women's unemployment. More women are entering the workforce just in this past year than in the last 8 years. Now, what are the Democrat strongholds? Blacks, Latinos, and women. So they see that their demographics, their base that they've relied on for so long is slipping. And it's slipping from them due to the economic policies, which they did not vote for, by the way. Not one single Democrat voted for a tax cut. So because of the economic policies, domestic and foreign policies of Donald Trump, because they lost the Rust Belt, no president has ever won the entire Rust Belt from the Democrats. Reagan even lost Wisconsin. So we have a man, an outsider, that has completely tipped over their apple cart of power, that is stripping their base away from them. Twice the amount of blacks like President Donald Trump than 1 year before. And then we have, of course, the Consumer Confidence Index. We have the stock market. People are going to see their 401ks. In February, people are going to start to see these tax cuts. So he's going to beat them with economics. And remember, it was the Democrats that told us it was the economy, stupid. Well, now they're telling us it's illegal alien stupid. And that doesn't ring well with the American people. That doesn't ring well with citizens. When women, who are the drivers of this economy, they are the the largest amount of entrepreneurs entering this economy. They are the managers of the household. They are going to see that a 0.9% GDP that we suffered under Barack Obama did not do anything for their pocketbook. And people vote with their pocketbooks. So as their pocketbooks get fatter, our midterms in 2018 and the re-election of Donald Trump in 2020 looks very bright. And so the Democrats are scrambling to find, how do they fill the void that Donald Trump is creating with his economic policies? How do they find new voters? And that is through illegal immigration, mass immigration, chain migration, whereby they can create more dependency by opening up our borders and allowing in dependent third world immigrants who are low skilled and non-English speaking.
Very well said. I want to move to something and actually throw this out on the table for both you and Megan, Donna. Mm-hmm. You know, this past week, there was this massive women's march. Now, I'm going to give you a guy's perspective of what I thought of this women's march. And then I'd like you guys to weigh in and see if, in your opinion, you feel I'm spot on with this. All right? First of all, I was disgusted at every news clip that I saw of the thing. I was just appalled.
It's like a freak
at the
show.
Behavior of the women. I was also, as a heterosexual man, I was totally turned off by every image that I saw moving across the screen.
That's sexist, honey.
I don't care what it is. I was disgusted by it. I was turned off. I found these people to be vile. I was offended at some of the things I saw. I wouldn't want my children to see it. These women were just terribly unattractive in their behavior, in their appearance, in their actions, in their messages. They were profane. It was in no way for me to watch that and say, hey, that's a representation of the female, the women, the lady population in America. To me, it was quite disturbing, and I'd like to get your thoughts and see if you guys agree with this heterosexual male's opinion of what I saw.
Well, go ahead, Megan.
Well, I actually went to the Women's March in Las Vegas because they had purposely moved the march from Washington, D.C. to Las Vegas because Las Vegas is a swing state. And what their whole goal is not equal pay, it's not gender equality, it's not the Me Too movement. What it is registering people to vote. And that's what's called power to the polls. That's the whole theme of the Women's March, is how many people can they register to vote to dirty the election rolls in order to yield dirty elections in the favor of Democrats. Now, as I was walking around trying to get people to register me to vote, and there were plenty of times for me to do so, I met a woman with a mustache. I saw women have their little girls carrying signs that had profanity, and I, too, was disgusted. I find the hypocrisy and the double standards of this movement quite appalling, but we kind of have to remember where this movement came out of. It's the true feminists, right? It is the Gloria Steinems of the world. It is the radical leftist women who told young little girls like me, when Bill Clinton was assaulting and harassing and raping women on his political rise, that we should get out our presidential knee pads and give thanks to Bill Clinton for keeping the theocracy off our backs. I remember that quote from Nina Burleigh. It's burned into my brain. So the feminist movement was never about the empowerment of women, even though that's what they wanted us to believe. It was only empowerment if we were up against the patriarchy, but only if the patriarchy were conservative Republicans who happened to be pro-life. They aren't about, it also came around with the sexual liberation, right? Burning the bras, free the nipple. And so these kind of double standards that they have. I'm a sexual liberated woman, but if I'm walking around naked and topless, if a man wolf whistles, I'm sexually harassed. I mean, what confusing type of signals are these, not only to men, but to young women? And so this whole feminist movement has these mixed signals by where the sexual liberation and the promiscuity that many outspoken feminists on the left promote, whether that's Chelsea Handler or other icons in Hollywood. And let's just take the Me Too movement in Hollywood, for example. We had Meryl Streep, who wore black to the Golden Globes, I believe, in solidarity with the Me Too movement. Well, Meryl Streep also wore black when she gave a standing ovation to Roman Polanski, who raped and sodomized a 13-year-old girl in a hot tub. Yeah. So you can't have it both ways. You have to have some standards, and they're not double standards. If you stand on principle, no one's going to be confused. But all of these confusing messages are due to the fact that the feminist movement isn't truly about empowerment unless they're protecting the predators in the Democrat Party.
Exactly. Well, I got to be candid and also offer another heterosexual male point of view about this Women's March. The women that I saw prancing around and the photographs that I saw of women prancing around topless or semi-nude did not, the last thing that came to my mind would have been some type of a whistle. It was more of a feeling of a dry heave or, quite frankly, vomit that came to my mind.
And they're
but definitely dry heaving. I did that, actually.
But they're the same women that were so appalled at what Donald Trump said to Billy Bush like 25 years ago in a private conversation, but have no problem with Bill Clinton or anything else. You know, Kathleen Willey's a good friend of ours. She was pretty much sexually assaulted. Luckily, she got away from Bill Clinton in the Oval Office. And she tweeted afterwards, after the little black dress thing, she said, "Hey, hashtag me too. I have my little black dress ready, and nobody invited me to the Grammys or the, I don't know what it was."
No, they didn't invite Juanita. They didn't invite Milwee.
No.
Leslie Milwee. They didn't invite any of them.
Hashtag double standard.
Well, they didn't invite Rose McGowan. And without Rose McGowan, we never would have had a Harvey Weinstein scandal, because she was actually the only actress that had the guts to stand up against the true patriarchy, right? The true predatory patriarchy in Hollywood, which was owned by Harvey Weinstein. She wasn't even featured on the cover of Time magazine when they chose the Me Too movement as the person of the year. There never would have been a Me Too movement if it wasn't for Rose McGowan. But you can see how the left protects their own. And they were protecting the women that remained silent for decades, while Harvey and Bill and the other Democrat men were raping and pillaging their way through Hollywood or politics. The feminists, the true, those empowering feminists were unbelievably silent.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but they truly they villainize the true victims, like a Kathleen Willey or a Juanita Broderick or a Leslie Milwee. Right. I'm wondering if there is any type of compensation or an apology that could be made to those men who actually can no longer unsee any of those terrible images that we had to endure if we accidentally landed on any footage or an article or photographs of that march. Because quite frankly, ladies, I am scarred for life at some of the things that I had to see. And I'm offended. I'm hurt. This is scarred deep inside at what I had to witness. And it was all accidentally. This was not a voluntary viewing that I had to endure.
You just might go blind. Megan Barth, TheReaganBabe.com. One thing that surprises me as somebody who's been in the New York media for over 30 years before I tried to retire almost 10 years ago, is, and I never had the pleasure of interviewing Donald Trump. Now, I covered some of the great things he did, like the opening of the skating rink.
That would have been big league.
It would have been big.
That would have been a big league interview, don't you think?
I never did have the chance, but
really,
I obviously
really big.
can see some of the great things he did in the decades that I worked in New York City. But what really is, I almost think at this point, he's loving what's going on as far as the closing down of the government, DACA, what's going on. What happened at Davos when they said, oh, he's going to go to Davos among all those elites. How dare he? And he was like a rock star there. We only have a couple minutes left, Megan, but your take on all this, because to me, I think he's brilliant the way he uses the media.
Well, he is. You know, he is the master negotiator. He is the art of the deal, the ultimate salesman. And he's also exposed the hypocrisy of the left. You know, he just floated out a trial balloon to the Democrats. It's okay, you know what, we'll give amnesty to 1.8 million people. And supposedly that's racist. I mean, what do the Democrats want? And obviously they don't want anything to change, even though things have to change. They still want chain migration. They still want the visa lottery program that allows terrorists to come into our country from, like the terrorists from Uzbekistan. I mean, really, do we need more immigrants from Uzbekistan? You know, when you look at this visa lottery system, and I wrote about this a little bit, the visa lottery system, you don't have to have a high school education, even though the Democrats tell us you do. No, if you look at the bill, if you look at the statute, all you have to have is an equivalent. Okay, well, what do you think a high school equivalent, high school diploma equivalency is over in Uzbekistan?
Being able to pile up sand in equal piles.
Right, there you go, right?
Yep.
And so, again, we have another Uber driver that decided to use his skills that he brought from Uzbekistan to mow down 8 people in New York as they were enjoying a sunny day on the back of their bikes. And so now that Donald Trump has floated out this trial balloon about 1.8 million amnesty path to citizenship, the Democrats are freaking out. That's not enough. Well, originally we were told there were only 800,000 DACA. He just basically doubled that, and they're still not happy. And so he's exposing the lies. He's exposing the hypocrisy. He's exposing the fact that the Democrats have nothing to run on. They don't have a platform. All they do is engage in the politics of personal destruction, and that doesn't win elections. And so all of the Democrats and the press activists, or the activists in the press, told us that Donald Trump, people were going to walk out of his speech, they were going to turn their backs on him, that everybody in the world hates us, and yet there were hours. Billionaires were standing in line for hours. When's the last time you think a billionaire ever stood in line for anything?
No, and secretly telling Donald Trump they like what he's doing, which is so hypocritical again. But Megan Barth, we agree with you on the sedition angle especially, and hopefully that will start to grow legs. ReaganBabe.com is where you can find her, folks, and at ReaganBabe on Twitter. Megan Barth, thank you so much for joining us here on Cowboy Logic Radio.
Thanks, Donna. I appreciate it anytime.
All right. And coming up next on Cowboy Logic Radio, we'll be talking to Tom DeWEESE of the American Policy Center.
Cowboys didn't dance, didn't wear designer shirts. Their hearts were filled with memories, their bodies filled with hurt. They would sit around the campfire.
Hi, thank you for listening. My name is Ron Phillips, and I'm the owner and operations manager of Talk America Radio. It is with great pride that I offer you these two 24/7 streams of some of the finest talk radio programming in the country, but I need your support. Talk America Radio is a listener-supported network. That means we need your help to continue to offer the quality programming you're hearing right now. Please visit talkamericaradio.us and click the Support Us button. You can contribute monthly or send us a one-time amount. We'll put it to good use continuing to share the American voice. Thank you.
Hi, it's Mark Walters from Armed American Radio. You know, for nearly a decade, I've been educating, informing, and entertaining responsibly armed Americans. And during that time together, we've shared some ups and downs, haven't we? Trump's election saved our Supreme Court and no doubt the future of our gun rights for now. But now is not the time to lay down. The enemies of freedom are well-funded and more determined than ever. To keep up with the state of your gun rights, make sure to tune in to Armed American Radio right here on Talk America Radio, the new dominant voice in conservative talk radio.
This is Don Neuen, co-host of the Drive Time Sit Rep. Join me as I call in to my Intel analyst, Denise Simon, for my daily situation report, or Sit Rep, the Drive Time Sit Rep. Check talkamericaradio.us for more information and show times.
Donald Trump came to Washington vowing to drain the swamp and make government work for the American people. But the swamp creatures in D.C. aren't going down without a fight, and the deep state is determined to overturn the election and keep their gravy train rolling. In these turbulent times, it's critical for patriots to stay engaged and be prepared to defend this president. You can stay up to date on Trump's battle to make America great again by listening to America First Radio with Jim Dawes each weeknight at 10 p.m. Eastern on the Liberty Feed.
This is Denise Simon, host of the Denise Simon Experience. When I'm not debating with Donna Fiducia about politics, I listen to Cowboy Logic Radio. Why, you ask? Because outside of my blog, founderscode.com, and my own radio show, the Denise Simon Experience, Cowboy Logic is by far the most entertaining and informative radio show on planet Earth. Plus, Don makes me feel guilty if I don't listen to his radio show every week.
Chris X Radio, weekday mornings at 10 Eastern, on the Talk America Radio Network.
Congressman Alan West joining us.
Well, thanks so much, Chris.
We're talking with Brigitte Gabrielle.
Oh, Chris, I am delighted to be with you.
Ted Nugent is here.
My pleasure, and congratulations with your show. I'm proud to be on it with you, Chris.
Listen to Chris X Radio, weekday mornings at 10 Eastern, right here on the Talk America Radio Network.
You're listening to your local news source, WLBB, News Talk 1330 and FM 106.3.
Hey, everybody, they're back on again.
Cowboys didn't dance, didn't wear designer shirts. When their hearts were filled with memories, their bodies filled with hurt. They would sit around the campfire and exchange a piercing glare, yes. Back when the West was really wild, Cowboys didn't dance.
Welcome back to Cowboy Logic Radio. I'm Donna Fiducia, along with Don Neuen. And our very special guest for this final segment of the show is a gentleman by the name of Tom DeWEESE. It's been a while since we've talked to you, Tom. You are of the American Policy Center, fighting for American property rights and sovereignty. Targeting what I love is the Southern Poverty Law Center. That needs to be brought to justice. Tom, welcome back to Cowboy Logic Radio.
Hey, thank you. It's good to be with you.
So tell us right off the bat what the American Policy Center is doing to try to combat what evil organization I call it, the Southern Poverty Law Center.
Well, we've gotten very concerned about several things that they're doing recently that really affect a lot of organizations, Christian organizations, conservative organizations, and they are making it actually there's a movement on by them and others to literally cut us out of society, and this has gotten very serious. So a coalition has come together to try to combat this. And what I'm doing, I put out an article and I put out some mailings and so forth, calling for a federal investigation into the Southern Poverty Law Center, and specifically its ties to the Department of Justice, Department of Homeland Security, the FBI, and others. They are getting grant money, we understand, and they are helping to write policy, and that policy is targeting conservative groups to be domestic terrorists. And so we're asking for that investigation.
That sounds pretty bad to me, Tom. If you don't mind, and if you have this information readily available or know it, as I am assuming that you do, help educate not only me, but the listeners about the original roots of the Southern Poverty Law Center. Now, when I think of this organization, I just think of vile activity. You just threw a big wrench into, or a big addition into that, with all the corruption and the colluding that's going on between some of the agencies in them. But could you give us a little history on them?
Well, they're out of Alabama. They were started by a guy named Morris Dees. And in the beginning, as I understand it, you had a period of time back in the 60s when the civil rights movement was just getting started. And you certainly had the Jim Crow laws. You had people who did not want to integrate, and so particularly in the South. And so, there were acts of violence, there were murders, other things against a lot of civil rights activists back in that time. And so my understanding is that the Southern Poverty Law Center came together as one of the entities to try to bring justice to that and to stop that kind of violence. And fine, that's how they started. But over time, especially since the 1980s or so that I've been aware of it, they have begun to morph into a radical, very stringent left-wing operation that anybody who says anything opposite of what they believe in is now a danger to the state. And as I said, they have worked their way in to getting contracts with the federal government, particularly the Department of Homeland Security. The Department of Homeland Security has put out several reports on what about domestic violence and potential domestic terrorists. And these reports they always focus on the right wing. They don't talk about Black Lives Matter. They don't talk about Antifa. They don't talk about radical Muslims. Nothing like that. It's always the right wing. And these reports that they put out will say things like, if you voted for Ron Paul, if you are hoarding, stockpiling food in your home, if you are against abortion, all these kind of things, you are a potential domestic terrorist. And then they help put together training programs for law enforcement training programs. And literally, the way they talk about who is a domestic terrorist, teaching police who would be a domestic terrorist, they're going to put my picture up there. It's this kind of thing. They've done 4 separate reports on me as being a hate group and a potential domestic terrorist. So,
well, what you just mentioned, we have 2 out of 3 as well, and the third one is we couldn't vote for Rand Paul or Ron Paul anyhow. But we got the other 2 things going against us as well. But I think, Tom, it almost seems like you have to follow the money trail. Like so many of these organizations, when they're founded, like you say, the Southern Poverty Law Center was back in the 60s, there was a need for it. But then they get the money. They don't want to give it up. What they were organized for in the first place is a lot better, but they have to justify their existence. And now they're going, to my estimate of what you've said, way over the top.
Well, they have, and I mean, this is why it's such a danger. But I mean, it really goes to the root of what their personal philosophy is, and what they're espousing. And so, we have a massive divide in this country, and there is a movement on, without question, to silence anybody who questions any other ideas and or promotes any other kind of ideas. They are determined to stamp out those ideas. Now, it's interesting for an organization that started by promoting civil rights and freedom of speech, that they have morphed into one to absolutely deny the civil rights of anybody who disagrees with them. Tell me the difference between that and the segregation that we had back in the 50s and 60s. Anybody who would say anything, in that direction, promoting integration and so forth, then brute force came out to silence those people, and supposedly the Southern Poverty Law Center came out to say that's not right. How's come it's right today because we disagree with them?
Well, it's not shocking given the fact that back then it was also the Democrat Party that was fomenting all of that, and now they're doing the same thing. It's the MO of the Democrat Party. Under the Trump administration, are you seeing any action being taken against the Southern Poverty Law Center? And what does poverty have to do with it?
Yeah.
Well, that's a good question. Certainly, they're opposed to themselves having any poverty.
Exactly.
Aren't they all in the Democrat Party?
Yeah, those are catchwords. Always, they're always for the little guy. They're always for the poor people against the rich people. That's just the mindset of them. I have not seen. Well, let me tell you what we've really seen happening here. First of all, we had this charade go on in Charlottesville, Virginia back a few months ago, and where supposedly the Ku Klux Klan turned out to support or to oppose the taking down the statue of Robert E. Lee, and the left came in, and supposedly this was to say who this was supporting these Confederate statues, the Ku Klux Klan. Well, I'm going to go out on a limb, and I'm going to say that the Ku Klux Klan of course, it's there. There are organizations of it around the country, but it's got no power, hasn't been involved in anything in a long time. It mainly exists in the minds of the Southern Poverty Law Center, because every time they put out their hate list of organizations, hate groups, they always include the Ku Klux Klan so that we're tied in with them. I've never met a member of the Ku Klux Klan, to be honest with you, but I get tied into them all the time. Well, they put this thing on, and this charade where they had this violence that take place. Right after that, the Congress, without question, without debate, without discussion, passed Public Law 11558, urging the President and his administration to speak out against hate groups that espouse racism, extremism, and xenophobia. Now, you ask the question, well, how does the President decide which of these groups are? Oh, they're to look at the Southern Poverty Law Center's hate list, and then he knows who these groups are. This was passed by Congress.
Never mind, Hillary Clinton gave the eulogy for Robert Byrd, a former Grand Wizard of the KKK, and a member of the Democrat Party. It's just wasn't Al Gore's father also in that group, or he certainly was against blacks having the right to vote? Nobody talks about the actual facts, and that's what drives me nuts.
Yeah. Well, now the danger is this. We have begun to see corporations looking at the Southern Poverty Law Center's hate list. They put this out every year. Here's the latest hate groups, and the Discover card has refused to allow, they've denied a certain conservative organization to use their card in their fundraising purposes. QuickBooks has canceled subscription to a Christian organization because they oppose same-sex marriage. PayPal has refused a conservative group their services for fundraising. Then it's becoming very well known that Facebook is blocking and censoring any kind of conservative postings, and Google has taken steps to deny internet searches for conservative websites. So this is the real danger that we're facing now. They're looking at this hate list as something official, and they have these contracts with these government agencies that are designed to protect our rights, and that's terrifying to think of that.
What does the Trump administration need to do to put the Southern Poverty Law Center in their place?
Well, I believe that Jeff Sessions should begin an investigation, first of all, the Department of Justice, into these connections. That would be a great step in the right direction, and it would be great if Trump would come out and say, I'm not looking at their hate list. It is a hate list, and I'm not going to look at that to determine what are hate groups, and just stand up and fight back against that. We also want the congressional committee that oversees the Department of Homeland Security to do that. Michael McCall, who's the chairman of that committee, we have a petition on my website at AmericanPolicy.org where you can sign that to demand that they start an investigation, start holding hearings and so forth into the Southern Poverty Law Center.
Boy, if Sessions does that, you think he might be labeled a racist?
He could be.
It might be nice he does something besides going after.
He's already.
Yeah, people smoking pot. We'll go after that. Like, got nothing better to do.
He's already labeled that. So.
Yeah,
I know.
AmericanPolicy.org is where you can find Tom DeWEES's great work. And Tom, let's talk about the war on private property as well. That's like the next big thing. Your new book. Tell me if I got the title right here. Sustainable, the war on free enterprise, private property, and individuals. And that's coming out next month?
That's correct. Yeah, you got it right. Absolutely. Yeah. This will cover all the issues that deal with sustainable development. This is a catchword that you hear in every single city council and county commission meeting, and you hear it on television with advertising and everything else. Sustainable. This is grown sustainable and so forth. And the book really shows where it came from and what its true purpose is. And the people behind it, when they came up with this title and started this whole policy, openly said at the time that this was a comprehensive blueprint for the reorganization of human society. That's a pretty strong statement.
That's scary.
Yeah.
All right, let me ask you this, Tom. Given the fact that Amazon.com, where people can probably buy this book and your other work, is squelching your reviews, potentially putting negative reviews up so that it's it's a negative vibe on all of your work. Where else can people buy your book other than Amazon.com?
Well, you're right. I actually haven't experienced that yet, at least blatantly that I've noticed it. But certainly your point is well taken because that's what they're doing. But everything we have is available at AmericanPolicy.org. My last book, Erase, which is a fiction book, a political thriller, murder mystery book on these issues. We have our own website for that called erasenovel.com. So, but it's all linked to AmericanPolicy.org.
Okay, great.
We need to put that on the TalkAmericaRadio.us website as well. We do have a bookstore. Talk a little bit about cities purging of conservative lawmakers and also how that's actually going on in rural areas, you were saying, in Colorado.
I've just learned this, and I don't have all the details for it. In fact, I wrote to the person yesterday asking for more details, the person who told me about this. But essentially what I've learned is that the state legislature in Colorado has passed some sort of a regulation or whatever you want to call it, that cities now can vote on, if you're in the same county, they can now determine who are local, rural elected officials, and they would participate in those elections. I don't know how that's operating, but that's what they're telling me, and systematically they are wiping out conservatives in these positions. And what concerns me so much about that is when I go around the country and speak, one of the main people is always saying, what do you do? How do we fight this? What do you do? And I keep saying, you got to get a hold of the election process, and you need to get these people out of office. Well, if this is the new way that we're going to handle it, to where local communities no longer have the control over their own local elections, then we've got a major problem, and their ability to fight back is almost wiped out.
And Tom Del Beccaro is a very good friend of ours. He ran for the Senate out in California. That's pretty much what's happened out there with the entrenched Democrat party out there. The only time there's really a Republican on a ballot is for president, and that's because that's what's needed by law. But what they do otherwise on all the other elections is they take the first top two finishers irregardless of party. So when he ran for Senate, he finished third, and you got that idiot Loretta Sanchez and, of course, Kamala Harris, who ended up winning, being on the ballot, and the conservatives and the Republicans have absolutely no say in what's going on out there, and that's entrenched, and I'm sure it's happening in other states as well. Like you say, it looks like Colorado's doing the same thing.
Well, this is the great danger, and I'm watching this day in and day out, and watching, like we've had several special elections recently and have not gone well. Virginia just had a election for new governor and so forth, and it didn't go well for the Republicans. And step by step by step, and we have, listen to what the Democrats are saying. They're giving illegal aliens the right to vote, and quite frankly, I don't think the ballot box means anything anymore. I think they sit there and wait and see what votes they need, and they stuff it. I don't think we have a legal election going on anywhere, and this is a major, major danger. We have got to get a hold of the elective process and make it honest. I mean, what is the deal about saying that people have to have identification when they go in to vote? How much can this cost somebody? Somehow this discriminates on the poor. I don't get it. They all have driver's licenses. They have other things they need to have. Almost everything we do, we have to have some kind of ID to do it, except for to vote. And that is just a bogus argument that holds no water whatsoever. They understand that they need these illegal votes, to win these elections, and we have got to focus on this. I think it's one of the greatest dangers we're facing.
I agree. Tom, in our community where Donna and I live, when I go into the little very small church to cast my vote, first of all, after living here for, what is it, Donna, 13 years now, they all know me. When all the little gray-haired ladies that work in the voting, basement of this church, they all know me. I walk in and they recognize me and say hello. They still ask me to show my ID, which I gladly do. I don't get it either, man. I do not get it.
I vote in a school here, and they always ask me for my ID. In fact, I have a voting card that was issued to me when I registered to vote in this community.
Yep.
And I still carry that with me.
How about early voting? See, to me, that totally opens the way for people to vote early and vote often, which was always such a joke.
Yeah, but
it really
thank
happens.
God. I'm going to go back to these little people, these little old ladies at the Rootful Church over here that I go to vote.
But that's the way it
you walk
should
in,
be.
they go, "Hi, Don.
Yeah.
Let me see your ID."
And make sure you don't carry your sidearm in there either.
Well, I don't, clearly, but even if I did, they probably wouldn't mind. "Hey, Don, let me see your ID."
Yeah, really. But it is very scary because it's called Election Day for a reason. And I remember when they started to do recounts, which obviously they tried with Bush, and then they also tried it initially with Donald Trump, that he started to get more votes, because when they really started looking at the voter fraud, it's rampant on the left. And I mean, that's even how Al Franken got in initially. They kept voting enough times so they had enough votes, recounting.
Well, I think the other thing is that a voting booth is a place where there should be no technology in there. It should be a paper ballot so that you have something to recount. So,
I agree. So talk a little bit about, now we have 62 acres. Navigable waterways. We get a couple inches of rain. We've got a little creek where everything runs down. An hour later, it's dry. This is another thing. The EPA's gone wild. It's just government gone wild, period.
Yeah, this is, the drive to control. You control the water, you control everything. And this is a drive on that. And, the UN's been trying to get control of the international waterways for a long, long time. And this navigable waterway in the U.S. leading into those oceans is one step towards that. And so, they're moving on that. But we have instances where, only the creek only runs when it rains, or that's not a navigable waterway. You're not going to get very far. And I've heard reports of places where it rains only once or twice a year and it becomes a mud puddle, and they're declaring that a wetlands. And there are other cases of wetlands as a weapon used to control the land. That's what it's all about. When you're talking about a comprehensive blueprint to reorganize human society, and we started when we first started fighting this stuff, Agenda 21, Sustainable Development, we started fighting it. We started talking about how they were herding people off the rural lands into the cities, and do that, and then you control where people live, how they live, how they move around, and so forth. People say, "Oh, for crying out loud, what a conspiracy theory." No, how would you do that? Well, the answer to how you do that are these kinds of things. You control the water, you control the land, you make it impossible to live on the land, and slowly but surely, it's not like you've got troops behind people with rifles saying, "Move into the city." You have rules and regulations where people get up and say, "I can't live here anymore," and they go. They use the Spotted Owl and the Endangered Species Act to shut down the timber industry. That destroyed whole towns. And so you have ghost towns out in those areas now, and people had to leave because you got to earn a living. So this is how they do it.
Yeah, carbon credits. I mean, Don drives 65 miles each way to work. So he's going to have to go. Thank God this didn't happen. I'm sure it would have if Hillary got in. He would have had to go to somebody who basically sits home all day and eats bonbons watching daytime TV to buy carbon credits from them so he could continue to drive. That was the biggie. That one was unreal to me. But the one thing that Barack Obama said that he didn't lie about was he's trying to fundamentally change America, and that really was what happened. We're talking with Tom DeWEESE of the American Policy Center, folks. Find him at AmericanPolicy.org and his upcoming book next month, Sustainable, The War on Free Enterprise, Private Property, and Individuals. If that doesn't say it all, nothing does. Tom, we have a couple minutes left. Just tell us what's on your mind right now.
Well, what we're always fighting here is, like we're talking about the Southern Poverty Law Center and other groups, are always calling us liars, 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 liars. It's conspiracy theories, all that kind of stuff. No matter how much fact we put out in front of them, it continues to, we get blamed for this. And one of the things I'm doing to try to counter this is coming with the book. We're putting together a property rights network. This is an we have so many activists across the country. Some of them are working by themselves. So we need to give them support. And so we're pulling together activists and organizations, and we have elected officials who really are working to do the right thing, and we're going to work with some civil rights groups as well who understand what's going on in the inner city with these smart growth programs, and working to try to help people there, legal organizations and so forth. But just to sum that up, as they call us liars and all this doesn't exist. I came across a quote the other day by Bill de Blasio, the head of New York City, the mayor of New York City.
Head of New York City.
Yeah. And he wrote, or he was in an interview in New York Magazine, and they were talking about his policies and so forth, and here's what he said. What's been hardest is the way our legal system is structured to favor private property. I think people all over the city of every background would like to have the city government be able to determine which building goes where, how high it will be, who gets to live in it, and what the rent will be. Really? Obamacare for housing. Now,
isn't he a good little communist?
And force you into doing what they want, because tell me when the government does anything better than the private sector.
Exactly.
Doesn't happen.
Well, this is what we're up against with Smart Growth, Sustainable Development, Agenda 21. This is the mindset we're fighting, and this is what they truly believe, that government knows best, and get out of the way. I was in New York City back in April, and I was talking to a radio host from CBS Radio New York, and we were looking out a window out over New York City, and I said, look out that window. You see all those buildings. People are paying mortgages, people are paying taxes, but as far as your eyes can see, there is not a single private property right, because all the decisions made on those buildings are made by somebody else behind closed doors. This is what we're dealing with. That's not freedom. It's not a life of your own, and this is what we're trying to stop.
And I bet you got the deer in the headlights look from that guy, huh?
I got a big grin on his face. He got it, and he said, "We got to get you on."
So, really? Well, Tom DeWEESE, unfortunately, the time is up. It's gone way too fast. The American Policy Center. Find him at AmericanPolicy.org. And your new book coming out, Sustainable: The War on Free Enterprise, Private Property, and Individuals. Folks, the bottom line is you might not want to get involved in politics, but politics has an interest in you. Tom, thank you so much for joining us. And I always end with a quote, but Don's going to end with the quote.
Yeah, this one was special, ladies and gentlemen. That rocket scientist / basketball player LeBron James on why Trump won. Quote, "I don't think a lot of people was educated."
Do you think?
The left is mobilized. Ladies and gentlemen, we do this because of you. If you've listened to this show, you heard no advertising. That translates to we do it for you. We'll see you next week.
And God bless America.
Cowboys didn't dance, didn't wear designer shirts. Their hearts were filled with memories, their bodies filled with hurt. They would sit around the campfire and exchange a piercing glance. Back when the West was really wild, cowboys didn't dance, yes. When cowboys didn't dance, didn't wear designer shirts, when their hearts were filled with memories, their bodies filled with hurt. They would sit around the campfire and exchange a piercing glance. Back when the West was really wild, cowboys didn't dance.
Check us out on the web at cowboylogic.us.